Today on Everyday Ordinary, we will dive into the lives of two phenomenal black men. One who is expecting twins and the other who already has twins. And what it looks like from the point of view of a man who is preparing for this wonderful occasion. At the time of this particular recording, there's very limited information out there for a black man to reference to in preparation for this said occasion. Hopefully, by the end of this three-part mini-series, you, the viewer, will have gained a greater understanding and learned a lot of helpful knowledge if you're preparing for a child, twins, or any type of addition to your said family. Thank you for tuning in for this final part of this three-part mini-series about fathers expecting or already having, and seeing it from their point of view, preparing for this, preparing themselves, preparing their household, and preparing to support their wife through this journey, the beginning of it, seeing it through, and then the long stretch thereafter, those years to follow, and everything that happens in between, which will be a lot of struggles and things of that nature. So this part will be defined as the first 3 to 6 months after delivery. And if the beginning part was challenging, this part will also be as or more challenging because you have a lot of other elements involved that we're getting ready to cover. So we're gonna start off with this one. We're gonna dive right in head first. As humans, we are all emotional creatures. That means men and women. And I know sometimes I feel like some of us feel like men aren't emotional just because they don't show it outwardly, but we do have them. And women, there are several women out here who have that same approach to it that men do. And just to know that that exists. And that words can and they will hurt. They can and they will hurt. No matter who you are, where you are in life, they can and they will hurt. I've heard these words from others and they stung me. They wasn't even talking to me, they stung. And I'm about to share some of these words with you. When I've heard a female say to someone else, when she says, "It's my child," as if he wasn't a part of it. That stung me, and I wasn't even the recipient of that. You didn't carry for these 9 months. That's obvious. But for them to say that as a form of attack, that hurts. Especially if their said father is there and doing his very best. And all that you do is work and come home. I've heard these before, and they hurt. And any human being that hears anything like this, knowing that they do a whole lot more, and that's all they say, it's pretty bad. And these things can cause a relationship to crumble, to fall apart, and not be able to rebuild. And these words coming from the source, I don't think at those moments they realize the damage that they're creating in the moment and in the long term. And then you'll have, I've heard this from some women out here, they'll say, "Hey, it's my child," but then when it comes down to something that they need, then it becomes the father's child also. But then once that's been cured, then it's back to just being her child that she carried for 9 months. And this is a very touchy space, but it's a space that needs to be covered. So I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. Kevin and hear what his thoughts are on that.
So I think the reality is that those statements that you made, when we think about it and how I was just kind of processing it, is one, you got to know who your spouse or your partner is. So whether you're married or maybe you guys are just dating and this is a relationship that has produced a child, maybe it was a one night stand. You know, you just don't know what it is. Whatever the dynamic is, I think at the end of the day, there has to be a mutual respect amongst the spouse or the partner, recognizing that each of us brings something to the table in not just creating these human beings, but also understanding how we create an atmosphere for their life. Whether you're together or not, that has to be that mutual respect. And what those statements really just kind of stand out is that not just a lack of regard or a lack of respect, but almost in a sense of just kind of being a team of one.
Yes.
Right? And
Yes.
those statements, they reflect where you are emotionally, even if that's not your truth, you may be saying it in those moments. I think that it really points to the reality that whoever is saying that, right, those individuals have to revisit, is this a team approach or am I approaching this thing, by myself?
Yes.
When I think about it more personally for us, we are very much taking the team approach.
Yes.
At the end of the day, it should be about us being able to work together for the sake of our children having, a better life.
Yes.
Right.
Mr. Weems?
Thankfully, I'm not married to a woman who says those types of things.
Right.
Yes.
So I can't speak specifically to ever feeling that directly with those exact statements.
Yes.
Things do get said that sting.
Yes.
Produce resentment.
Yes.
I think that's in most relationships.
Yes.
Sometimes it can be said, they might not even know what they're saying.
Yes.
Sometimes things hit you in a specific way because you hear it a certain way, because like what you alluded to, wherever you are in your emotional growth. Sometimes it could be a childhood wound, but because the way that she says something, it triggers something in you. And it's just a slippery slope because you never want to weaponize your children. You never want to make your kids.
That right there, guys, that right there, what he just said was absolutely fantastic. I didn't even see that comment, but I'm so happy that he said it because people do that far too much and they're not concerned with the consequences. They're concerned with that impulsive moment that motivated them to do that, and then hoping that sorry or I apologize will remedy that.
Right.
And again, we all have emotions and we're all human creatures.
And it's crazy. I mean, it's one of these things. You want to be married to somebody who has emotional intelligence and can process things and hear things and know that everything isn't an argument. Know that sometimes it's just differing points of views. Knowing that
Yes, sir.
because I think that we should do this with the kids doesn't mean that I think your way is wrong. It really comes down to like you said, respect, and a friendship really does help as well. Like if you're friends with your spouse, it makes a huge difference.
That helps massively because understanding is in there.
Yeah. I mean, that's what saved my marriage year after year. Times when we've gotten to things, we've hit walls, and it feels like, okay, we're about to get a divorce. It's the friendship. Before we dated, like we were like homeboy and homegirl.
Oh my goodness, that's great.
So that always kind of, before we hit that rock bottom, kind of that holds us up long enough that we can get back to the romance. But then when kids are involved, it does just add a whole new layer of, you gotta put people to bed. You're exhausted by the time they go to sleep. So I mean, you're just not in the same space as you were when you didn't have children.
Yes.
So it's kind of like you gotta meet your spouse all over again.
That's
Same thing with your kids. You gotta meet your kids daily.
That's dope, man.
Yeah.
Really. That's dope, guys. I mean, I ain't gonna lie to you. I would recommend you play this back.
Run it back.
That was good. Run it back. Moving on. So, Mr. Kevin, now this question may be a bit challenging for you both.
Okay.
And it has everything to do with what you both do for a living. But do your best and at least give some level of insight, if you can, for our viewers. When it comes to paternity leave concerns and availability. And again, like I said, I understand you guys' backgrounds, but I know paternity leave can be very daunting and challenging for a lot of people. In some states, they now have governed that the man or father and the woman or wife now have up to 3 months of paternity leave, but there may be some states out here or some countries out here where that's not available. So with that being said, please share your thoughts on that.
So I'll speak at it twofold. One, I have a friend who had actually, he and his wife just had a child, and his paternity leave was only 2 weeks.
Wow.
They only gave him 2 weeks, and I was just like, man, are you serious? And so that was a whole conversation. Luckily, because of COVID, his wife being a teacher, you know, she was able to kind of be off longer than him. But for us, I think the challenge for me is because of my profession. There's really just kind of this element of like, you know, how long is pastor going to be away?
Right. Yeah.
It's not a matter of like, can I? Yes.
Exactly.
But, you know, people get a little restless after they haven't heard their pastor's voice, you know, in a while. But it also creates an opportunity for, again, for others to be able to lend their voice, but it also creates an opportunity for the individual congregant to begin to see where they need to develop, you know, in their own personal journey beyond what I'm giving to them.
Right.
Yes.
So I think paternity leave is going to look a little eclectic for me. So kind of like, you know, starting it, maybe even having to slip back in and then leaving back out again, because it's really going to be centered around the support, you know, that the twins and my wife is going to need during this process.
Sure.
Yeah.
Mr. Weems?
Paternity leave for me was weird because during the time I was still in the school system. So,
Okay.
you know, prior to doing stand-up full-time, I taught school. And when the twins were born, this was 2013, I left the school system in 2015. In 2013, I got 2 weeks. And
Wow.
like it was unfathomable. Like, this is what you think that I need and able to get my mind right. And I was already kind of 1 foot out of the door.
Yeah.
That kind of expedited the process for me. Because I didn't like the fact that it felt like somebody was dictating the amount of time I could spend with my kids.
That's a way to look at it.
So it was a tough decision. I mean, but when I made the leap, it was very mindful. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew that I wanted to control my schedule. And mainly because I wanted to be able to be the type of dad who could go on every field trip, which I do. I show up at every field trip, at every meeting, you know. And, you know, sometimes I'm losing a little bit of bread because of it, but it always comes back in some strange way.
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful to have the opportunity to be with them rather than the money.
Right.
Because it's just like, it's not even, can't even wait to.
That's awesome, man. I mean, I ain't gonna lie to you, Jason. Me and this guy, we probably could do a whole separate video on how to a lot of different things as it relates to fatherhood. So moving on, Mr. Kevin, preparing if she needs to be bedridden. And when we talk about that, obviously you're going to see certain things, but I'm really referring to the workload that may come with that, because she can't help. That means it's more on your shoulders. How are you thinking about that? And do your best to kind of stay in that space the best you can.
So, again, I think about it, you know, especially if, for whatever reason, you know, once they get here, if it's a cesarean, you know, and she's got to be down. Again, it's about support, right? And then also having that village and being open to others coming alongside you to help. So I really just been, you know, thinking it's an element of communication. Hey, checking in with her. What do you need?
Yes.
You know, and even if she's not knowing exactly what she needs, just being a presence.
Yes.
To be able to just kind of handle taking things, or just cleaning bottles or doing whatever. So those are things that she doesn't necessarily have to think about.
Yes. That's dope, man. I like that.
Yeah.
Mr. Weems?
Yeah, my wife was bedridden to a certain degree with the twins. She was on bed rest with the preeclampsia. And it was just a thing of, it was tough for her because she's the type of person that likes to move and likes to, you know, kind of be in the
active
mix of stuff.
Yeah.
So it was, I could tell the difficulty of her being sidelined for a while. And it was me actively, sometimes forcibly, telling her,
chill out.
chill.
Yeah.
Times catching her trying to get out of bed.
Yeah.
And almost physically pushing her back down, like
That's that
please.
support. Yeah. Yeah.
So sometimes it doesn't feel. It's not lovey-dovey support. Sometimes it's yo chill.
Yeah.
like talking to her like we in the street. Just lay back down.
Yeah.
Just to get that point across.
Yeah.
You know, it's always love behind it, but it's very direct.
Right. And I'm sure it has to be at times.
Yeah.
So Kevin, this one is kind of to you in a way for your current position. How are you thinking about balancing your love, attention, and affection with your wife and your children when they all want you at the same time?
So I think it's about, and again, this is just kind of how my mind works, right? Because I'm used to being a pastor, everybody's kind of at you at the same time. It's about priority, right? And I think that you just got to kind of measure in that moment what's priority. Because if it is, okay, she's priority because this is their source of nutrition, right?
Yeah.
If I can at least get her settled, get her calm, that way then we can then get them calm together or vice versa, you know, taking care of them and then making sure she's good after that. I think it's just about prioritizing.
Right.
Now, I'm sure it won't be perfect as I just laid it out where it's linear.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
at least the concept is there.
For sure.
As long as you got that word in front of you, that's major, because a lot of naturally human beings are naturally, especially living in the United States, are selfish.
Yeah.
And dealing with putting someone in front of you more often than what you're used to can be a bit challenging. But as long as you're in a mental space where you understand it's necessary, I don't think it's that difficult. So, Mr. Jason, I asked you, how did and are you, and almost more or less are you, in the current times, balancing your love, attention, and affection with your wife, your two twins, and your oldest son?
Yeah. So much of it is just about being present. And it's not just physically standing in the room.
Yes, please expound on that.
It's attentively being in the moment. Because there's times where I'm not present and I can feel it. There's times where I'm washing dishes and my kids are talking to me, but my mind is elsewhere.
Yes.
And you know, I can hear what they're saying and I can respond, but I'm not really feeling it. I'm not really, you know, absorbing everything they're really trying to get across to me.
Yes.
And in those moments, I can see them being deflated. I can see the shift in them.
Yes.
It's one of the things that actually guided me towards therapy. It's because I was so, even with COVID, you know, has put people in such a pressure cooker. And people haven't been around other people, and people have, you know, social anxiety to be in crowds again. And you know, with my profession, I'm always around crowds.
Yes.
So I have this crazy anxiety about being out. But you know, I caught myself throughout this last year, just sometimes just being in the house, but not there.
Yeah.
And it was scary because I could start to see the effect on my kids.
Yeah.
I could start seeing them maybe start coming to me a little bit less because they feel like they're not gonna get heard.
That's tough.
So I immediately shifted. I was like, if I've got some baggage in my head and some emotional weight that's keeping me from the present moment, I have to address it because I can't live with knowing that it's possibly affecting my kids.
Right, that's true.
So, you know, I got my butt into therapy.
Yeah.
And, you know, hopefully with that, I'll learn more about myself.
Okay, guys. This next one is a very interesting one, and I know, and I feel confident this is going to be very challenging for a greater percentage of 50% of the people watching this right now. And it's about creating a schedule for your home life. And this applies if you have children, if you don't, but especially if you have children. Having some level of schedule will kind of help things kind of flow through instead of just that fly-by-night attitude, just kind of do it when you can, get it when you fit in. And then stuff really doesn't work. It's a proven system from years and decades that it works if you can create one that you and the person that you created this life with is able to handle. And that makes sense. I mean, that's not unrealistic. And that's a challenge that you and that said person had to go with, because some of us are more structured than others and less structured, and some of you are right there on the same page. But this is the next thing that we want to talk about, and Mr. Kevin, as it relates, and throughout this conversation, you have referenced that a few times, and I appreciate that. But I would still like to hear, what you may or may not have to say, even if it's just to say some of the things you said earlier about the value of creating a home life schedule.
Yeah, so it's definitely going to be important for us having, just kind of our individual schedules, and then having twins, and especially as we talk about, just kind of progressing back into our careers, right? It's going to be very, very important for us to have a schedule. So I would say to, again, new parents or prospective new parents, communication. Really just kind of sitting down and saying, okay, what has been our schedule? And in fact, last year when we kind of had to talk about expanding our family, I started doing little things to adjust my schedule before we even found out that we conceived. So that I started to get in the frame of mind of like, okay, I need to be done by 6 o'clock, and not having any meetings by this particular time on a Friday, so that I'm able to get home and be around and be visible and be a part. So even now, there's going to have to be more of an adjustment, but I think it's always that checking in.
That's excellent, man. I truly appreciate your point of view on that, Mr. Weems.
Schedule's king. Like, above anything else, it's king. I mean, thankfully, I come from my father's military, ex-military. So I mean, he's a very organized man.
Okay.
And I think naturally I was like that in a way, but I also kind of pulled a lot of that from him. So even pre-children, I was already pretty. I mean, if you come to my house, I got like all the body wash lined up in a particular place. In my cabinet, all my labels are facing forward. All the rice is together.
Yeah.
If one box is turned the other way, I flip it back the other way.
Right.
It bothers me.
Yeah.
So I took all of that into rearing my children.
Was that, and I know this is kind of in the same wheelhouse, but slightly different. Was that a challenge for your wife, or was she similar?
She's pretty. I'm more organized in the sense of, like, I put everything on the calendar. We got a big calendar in the kitchen.
Yeah.
That's kind of my thing. Anytime something new pops up, I scribble it down. It's color coded. I got things circled.
Got you.
Just because I spend so much time in that area. I'm cooking lunch. I'm cooking breakfast. I'm cooking dinner. And I need to stand back and visibly see the entire board. It's like playing chess for me.
Yes, I think that's so important when you, especially at the point that you're in, and where you're headed, to have a lot of things going on. Your home life, you have 3 children, you have a wife that all need you, and you have a career that, as you mentioned earlier, took a sort of a drawback because of the current state of the nation. And in you, Kevin, I think listening to Jason, this will probably be a great assist for you to see things that you could potentially avoid, which it sounds like you're already kind of ready for. So I think that's fantastic. So Kevin, how are you planning, if possible, to maintain your physical and mental strength juggling work, wife, twins, shopping, food, and the ever so popular sleep deprivation?
My God.
Yes. One more time.
Call auto.
Yes.
That's how I'm gonna do it.
Right?
God, all the way.
Because that sleep deprivation, I've heard
it's terrible.
horror stories,
I'm gonna speak on it.
and I've heard how it can sometimes create a wedge in relationships. Did you get up? I got up last time. It's your turn. So, where are you at with that?
Man, I don't know. I think that's my honest answer. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, other than trial and error. I think that I just really try my best to, and what I can't show up for, I have to be honest about my capacity, right? Because when your cup is full or your cup is empty, you just gotta acknowledge that I need to kind of step back. I don't have anything to give at this moment.
Yeah,
Right?
that is very, very tough. I mean, that's really another expression of humility and being able to put that pride aside
It takes strength
and
to ask
that
for help.
ego on the other side,
Yeah.
and kind of walk between and put your family first. And that's very tough because that ego and that pride will get you in trouble.
Every time.
Mr. Weems?
Sleep deprivation is something that I experienced like intensely, firsthand. With the twins, their sleep schedules were just crazy. I mean, one would be down for an hour, then they wake back up and start crying, and one would be hungry. So I mean, there was literally no straight stretch of time that you could get, you know, an uninterrupted block. And it put crazy stress on the relationship, just because, you know, as humans, you know, our bodies need rest to repair themselves at night, you know, all of those things. So I mean, you know, headaches increased, irritability increased, snapping at one another, you know, and a lot of times you're the only two in the house, so you might not even be mad at that person, but there's nowhere else to put that negative energy.
Yes.
Thankfully, we were able to, with the twins, we had to break down and get a night nurse. So it was a woman that we found through another friend who was a nurse by day, but at nighttime she would sometimes come to people's houses and like kind of sit the kids. And that's all, like, for literally about 3 to 6 months, she would come to the house, you know, maybe like 2 or 3 nights a week, and give us a chance to sleep uninterrupted.
We need her information. We need it.
Yeah.
Whoever she is,
Come
we
to the
need
crib.
it. We
Yeah.
need you.
Yes.
Come on over. Pull up there. Pull up on us.
And she was a godsend. I mean, it was
Yeah.
literally,
Wow.
you could feel yourself changing. You could feel your molecules, you know. And
Realigning,
yeah,
huh?
and you would just approach each day with a fresher lens.
Wow.
You know, to be able to show up better for your kids, to be able to, maybe your wife snaps at you, but you can realize, oh, she's just, you know, in her feelings about something, and not take it personally.
Right.
Yes.
Rather than come right back with something, and now you got a fire started.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, the sleep is such a key thing for the kids and for you.
I like it. I like the transparency for you both a lot. And this is another one that, again, you both have kind of talked about. So I mean, if you don't have a lot to say, it's fine because it's been covered throughout this whole journey that the three of us have been on, and trying to help the viewer understand a lot more. Is the importance of friends and family support.
Yeah, I think it's very important. One, just kind of from what I've been hearing, and I know you can speak
Right.
to this, is like sometimes you can be so caught up in being a new parent that you aren't fostering any adult relationships, right? And so I think it's going to be important
That's
for
major.
us, and especially for me. I'm an extrovert. Now my wife is an introvert, so you know relationships are important, but she's cool
Being alone.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Me, that drains me
Yes.
to not be around people.
I'm so
Because
happy.
that's where my energy comes from,
Yes.
right? If it's just quiet and just kind of like, no, this ain't gonna work. I need to be around some people.
I'm trying to tell these jokes, man.
Yeah.
So I know for me, it's going to be very, very important to have that friend support and family support. And when I say support, it's not just about them being there for them, but having people that, if it's my friends just saying, look, you need to get out the house, like, come on, let's go. You ain't been
Yes, sir.
to something. Let's go to the comedy show. Let's do something.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's support. for
Yes.
me.
And I'm glad you positioned it that way, because sometimes with conversations like this, you can look at it and stay in this particular space. So I'm glad that you had the ability to step outside of that space.
Yeah.
And it's something that I'm trying to be better at, because it's something that I don't think I was as strong with early on in my kids' lives, as far as continuing to foster relationships outside of them. Once they were born, kind of the world kind of,
Shut down.
yeah, it was them. Y'all good? The house good? You know, my parents good? You know, I didn't have a lot of free space to even, you know, get on a phone call and, you know, stay on it for 30 minutes and hear what somebody else is going through and give them my perspective.
Yeah.
So my preferred mode of communication turned into texting, because it was just, I can do this quick, I can do this while they're in the tub, I can do this while they're eating dinner. and then get right back into the thick of it. But I know I need it. I'm an introvert who can behave as an extrovert.
I like the way you worded that.
Yeah. I like my solitude. I like, when my kids go to bed, my wife goes to sleep, and I'm up by myself, and it's 12 at night, 1 o'clock. I'm typical with late hours because of my profession. I'm getting in from the club at 1 or 2 in the morning.
Right.
So, a lot of times that's when I'm at my best. I feel the most creative. And there's something about that silence in the house that does something for me.
Right.
It regenerates me. But I know I need to be better as far as calling folks back. Because a lot of times it's not even about me. I need to widen my lens. Sometimes they need something. They need that listening board.
I'll also share this with you too, because I had my own struggles in regards to that, not specifically like returning calls and all that stuff, but in regards to the maintenance of things.
Yeah.
That it can benefit you in so many ways that you won't realize until later. But at the same time, the other side of that is you can alienate people, and it's not your intentions, but that's how it comes off. And after a while, people are gonna get tired of being the only source,
putting themselves
and they're gonna start feeling like he ain't even whatever, So I'm just gonna leave it alone. And then the thing that you gotta try to process is that when you ready to call, you gotta be prepared that they're not gonna have that same energy that you got. And then it comes down to your value system. How important is that person to you? Are you willing to try to mend that?
Yeah.
Because of all the effort that they put in, and now they don't want to, because people will be that way. Now you want to, well, fine, that's cool.
Right.
I'm good.
Yeah.
So, and I know it's tough because what you just said. Just your description on how a daily life is for you.
Yeah.
Is probably very challenging to maintain or create new friends. So again, with that being said, I'm glad that you was able to reveal that. This next one is quite interesting. I discovered this by talking to a lady friend that I know, and she helped put this into perspective in a very serious way that I didn't see coming. So all I can say is that I'm happy that she was willing. If she's watching, I was very happy that you were willing to share this with me, because of you, it is now here. And for all the men out here, please tune in very closely to this part. And what I'm talking about is supporting your child's mother during that postpartum moment after the baby has been delivered and is at home, dealing with her depressions that she might go through that may be caused from random things, or the loss of hair, her body's not returning, just various things that sometimes she might not be able to explain, but being able to support that. So I lean to you, Kevin, and how are you preparing? And that doesn't even mean that your wife may go through that, or your wife may go through that who's watching, but how are you preparing for that?
So I think for me, one of the ways I've been preparing is reading, just educating myself. What is it? What does it look like? We've been taking some classes so that we can just kind of get an understanding from a medical professional standpoint, what's happening and how I can support, how I can teach others to support, so that if she goes through that, she has a village that's with her, supporting her in turn.
Yes. Mr. Weems?
And for me, postpartum, this is another thing that's very close to home. After the twins pregnancy, which is a hard pregnancy for my wife, the physical carrying, the emotional load, what it did to her mentally, it wasn't a happy pregnancy. So the majority of that pregnancy, I remember it just being kind of, you weren't sure how to behave around her because you weren't sure what type of mood she was in regards to the twins, or there was even times where I felt like she didn't even want to have them, period. Like, early on conversations, she was talking about even thinking about the possibility of an abortion. Well, at least it crossed our mind.
Right.
Her
Sure.
mind.
Right.
And you know, just to have those types of conversations is a very sobering thing. I don't think she ever was really going to,
Yeah.
but you know, she was definitely in a space that allowed her mind to drift there.
Yeah.
And it was tough because you know, it's only but so much you can do to pull somebody out of what they're in. You know, I can say I can make you food, I can rub your back, I can bring you things. But anybody that's ever been depressed, you know, I haven't dealt with postpartum specifically,
Yes.
but I have dealt with depression.
Yes.
And it's a heavy thing. It's
Yes.
something that it's not as simple as people make it out to be. Trying to make sure she was physically safe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I went back to work after my 2 weeks off, I was actually scared that she may do something to the kids.
Right.
I had that fear. Like, I wouldn't express that very much, but every time I would leave the door, you know, I would text my father, you know, can y'all call her a couple of times a day just to check in?
Yes.
And I think that made a world of difference.
Yes.
Until she got to the point where, you know, she was able to, you know, pull herself out. Because, I mean, it's something that you actively have to want for yourself, too.
That's true. That is very true.
And once we were able to get out of it, I mean, now she said, you know, I can't imagine life without the twins.
Yes.
You know, our house wouldn't be the same. Our family wouldn't be the same.
Exactly.
But in those moments, it was very touch and go.
Yes.
And that's what postpartum can do. It can make, you know, it can take you somewhere else.
Right.
And then you see mothers who harm their children or who do crazy things, and sometimes people judge them, but they don't understand like the hormonal imbalance.
Yes.
Like, it's a very, very intense situation. It's something that needs to be taken more seriously, I think.
Yeah, I think if it's at all possible, I think I might see if I can come across a woman out here who is willing to share that. Because I think it needs to be a little bit more understood, and I know exposing yourself like this can be challenging for a lot of us, and you open yourself up for judgment for people who don't know you, what you just expressed.
Oh, sure.
So, you know, if it is all possible, I will try to find that if it's possible, because I think people truly need to have a greater understanding of that. And you know, you can listen to other forms, but when you see someone expressing it physically, visually, it comes off a bit differently. So, we're here at this final idea. We're about to wrap this up, and I truly appreciate you guys' patience with this. This final thing is, have you thought about any outlets just for you when you need to get away? Because there's going to be points or moments, you know, during these first 3 to 6 months or thereafter, where you're going to have that hand and foot chore list that seems like it doesn't have a bottom. It just seems like it's like a satchel that has no bottom. It's just like you can just keep grabbing and you just like feel like you're just going in circles, and it's like, what is going on? What did I sign up for? What am I going to do? And I say an outlet meaning something positive that can be good for you, you know, versus the places that we don't want you to go, which would be like drinking, going to the bar, getting wasted, not coming home, taking drugs, you know, just going to the strip club, doing any of these other things instead of being at home and trying to do your best to get through it, versus being at a positive place and like maybe a friend's house, where if you going through it, like I'm going over such and such house, your wife might not like it, your lady might not like it, but at least she knows where you are and that you're safe. So, with that being said, Mr. Kevin, what are your thoughts on that?
So one of the things I'm doing now is starting some activities that are for me that I can continue. So I used to be, when I was a teenager, I was a lifeguard.
Yeah.
And kind of, you know, I swim throughout the years, but just kind of left it alone. So I'm actually getting back into swimming, taking some advanced swimming lessons, and then entertaining some things like maybe martial arts or kickboxing, something that's for me that I can pick that back up, you know, once we have them just kind of on a flow, on a schedule.
Yes.
It helps me to relieve.
And that's where I'm at with it. You know, as I bring this up, as you're about to speak, about some way you can release.
Yeah.
like for me, my number one, and anybody who knows me knows mine, is the gym. It's the gym, because one thing for sure, I ain't gotta worry about them weights saying nothing to me, that treadmill saying nothing to me. But by the time I'm finished, whatever I'm feeling, I done wore it out. And it doesn't affect anybody that I care about.
Right.
So, Mr. Weems?
That's very important.
Yeah.
Finding something to diffuse yourself.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, we're all taking time bombs, walking, and it just depends on what's going to set you off.
Right.
You know, how full can you get before you break?
Yeah.
How much weight can you carry? Some people's threshold is crazy high, and other people's, you know, is instant.
Yeah.
For me, it's something that I'm actively working on because I'm terrible at self-care. My
Self-care,
wife,
that's the word.
Yeah, you hear it thrown around all the time. Like,
Yeah.
my wife will go away for a weekend and stay at a hotel, just her, and you know, just relax and watch TV and stuff.
Yeah.
For me, it's something that's very hard to do. Like when I'm gone, I'm worried about the kids. I'm worried about the house. I'm worried somebody's gonna break in. I'm worried if who. So for me, it's easy to just stay home. But then that means I never get a break.
Yep.
So like right now, I've started getting back into riding my bike. I try to get up early, like before the kids wake up at like 6 in the morning, 6:30. You know, ride for a half hour. You know, come in, do some push-ups. You know, something like that. So by the time they wake up, I've done at least something specifically for me.
Exactly.
Sometimes it's journaling. It's just writing and just getting all these thoughts out.
Yes.
Sometimes it's listening to podcasts at nighttime.
That's good.
I love doing yard work. So like, you know, going out in the yard and, you know, cutting the grass and watering stuff, and it's just peaceful. You know? It's a chance to be still, to kind of ground myself and kind of connect with nature.
Yeah.
I love going to the woods and like taking like long walks and just zoning out.
Hiking is a good idea.
Yeah. I mean, most of the time I take my kids with me, so
Yeah.
they're in the woods with me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, self-care is something that I'm actively seeking. It's something that I'm trying to be more selfish about, because I'm such a selfless person in general. But it's something, it's very often it's to my detriment.
Right.
I need to learn how to say, no, I'm just doing this for me.
Yes.
I'm not sure when I'll get there or if I'll get there.
I believe that you will.
Yeah,
Because it's on your mind.
It's
And,
on my mind.
and it sounds like it's important.
Yeah.
And for things that are important, you tend to
Make-
typically put more energy into finding the resolution, or at least getting close to the finish line towards whatever it is that you're searching for.
Right. Even therapy has been a form of self-care for me. Because it's something that I've thought about for a while. It's something that my wife has, you know, suggested,
Yes.
you know, to me and things. But you know, when do I have time to sit for an hour and talk to somebody?
Here's the thing, and we all have heard this, very cliche. You make time
For what's important.
for the things that you want, that you find important.
Yeah.
You make time. At the end of the day, people don't like to hear this. I say this a lot. You got 24 hours in a day. If you're telling me that you can't find 30 minutes to watch a show, you can't find 30 minutes to exercise, whether it's at home or at the gym, if you can't find 10 minutes to sit in a corner somewhere and just meditate, listen to some water running or a gong sound, and just take your mind away and focus on that sound, something you have to really look at yourself in the mirror and really absorb what's going on. Because at the end of the day, all of us, the three of us and everyone out there watching, you only have one shot at this. You have one shot at life. Once it's gone,
That's it.
that's it. Because none of us knows what happens next. It's a lot of people that speculate, but none of us truly knows what happens next. So we want to enjoy all of it while you're here, the best that you can.
Absolutely.
So with that being said, that ends my line of questions, and I hopefully that for those who were able to watch all of this from beginning to end, that you gained a greater understanding from where a man comes from when it comes to preparing his home, his mind, supporting his wife, and preparation for a child, twins, however it comes. Before we close this out, I'd like to turn over to Mr. Kevin if he has anything that he would like to share with you viewers.
So I just want to thank you all for watching. And again, I hope that for those of you who are prospective fathers or even prospective mothers that are watching this, I hope that something was said or shared that really empowers you in your journey. If you want to keep in touch with me specifically, there'll be a link on there for my individual website. It's jkj2ministries.org. That way we can stay in touch, receive some information, and just see my journey and how things are going as I prepare to welcome our 2 babies into the world.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Mr. Weems, same thing.
Again, I want to echo what Kevin just said, and just thank you for tuning in, taking an interest in the topic. There's nothing more important than our children.
Yes.
I mean, what's going to happen when we're gone? We have to, set up the next generation, and this has been a very fun conversation. I love talking about my kids. I love talking about parenthood. It's something that once you stick your toe into that water, like you'll be changed forever. And I really, really, really hope that this, connects with somebody who may have questions, or this clears up something, or gives somebody the courage to, seek therapy, to, build their support system, and to just live a healthier life in general. If you want to stay in touch with me, if you want to see my latest comedy special, go to Amazon right now. It's on there. It's called Jason Weems Unknown. I think you'll love it. I talk a lot about my kids in that too. And you can find me at jasonweemscomedy.com. And the links will be below. Thank you so much for joining.
So to wrap this up, once again, your 100% devotion to your children, twins, for those 18 years and beyond, because you got to remember, they didn't ask to come here. You made the choice to bring them here, and I believe it's your responsibility to look care after them. Once again, thank you for spending some time with Everyday Ordinary. Until we meet again, thank you.
See you.
Peace.